All right, so we've just seen how we can print out something to our console. Now in this lesson, we're going to learn about variables. Variables are one of the core pillars of programming, and it's a really nice way for us to be able to save pieces of data, or just generally just be able to save values and reuse them later. Either we can manipulate them, we can update them, we can change them, we can take parts of them. There is so much that we can do, but it's really important in programming for us, if we have something, if we have a piece of information, a piece of data, whatever that may be, that could be a text like this, hello world, it could be a number, anything, we want to be able to make sure that we can reuse this later again. So the way that we can do that is by saving it in something called a variable. So a variable in Python generally has, generally you want to just give it a descriptive name, not too descriptive of course, but you want to give it a good descriptive name so that you understand what's contained inside. So in this case, I'm just going to call it hello world underscore. And now we want to assign a value to this variable. And we're going to do that by having an equal sign here. And now on the right hand side, we can put the value that we want this variable to refer to. So in this case, I'm going to cut this value. I'm going to paste it here. So I want this hello underscore world variable, and again, I'll go back over again this in a second, to contain the value of this text here, of this string hello world. So now we can use this variable, and instead of putting this string here, we can just put this in here. And so now what happens is when we have a variable that's defined, and we've defined it up here because we've assigned a value to it. So now we can use it, and we can even reuse it multiple times, as often as we would like. And whenever we call this variable, we will then look up the information contained inside. In this case, the information contained inside the hello world variable is this piece of text hello world, or rather the string hello world. So let's try running this. We're going to go type in Python 3.9, and I'm going to again run my main file here. And we can see the results that we're getting are the exact same like we had before. But we can also change it. So we can print out hello world, and then we can say here hello world. And I'm just going to take the same thing, but in this case, I'm just going to spell it lowercase. And then I want to print out the variable. And so now what we've done here is we've overwritten the value contained inside this variable. So if I run this now, we're going to see two outputs. The first one is from the first print statement here, which prints out the value contained inside this variable, hello world. The value contained inside this variable is the last value that was assigned to it, which is going to be this value here. So essentially, we have hello world, then we look up what does hello world contain, what does this variable reference? It references this string. And now we take the same variable name and we assign a new value to it. So we've overwritten the variable. And now when we print out the same variable, we look up what are the contents of this variable, and we see these are the contents. Now the only difference here is that the H and the W is lowercase, so we can see here, even though we're printing out the same variable, because we've overwritten it at some point, it now contains different information, and well, now printing out slightly different results. So variables are extremely useful because, for one, we can reuse them, we can also update them, and it really allows us to have this core functionality of just being able to take information and go through a program flow and be able to use that information in places later on. And you'll see this is one of the core things that we'll just use all the time, because it's really important for us to, when we have a bit of information, be able to hold on to it and be able to use it in a later place. Now we can also reference variables too. So we can also use like a previous variable. So let's say we want to have a second hello world. And this one we'll call hello world, or we'll just call this one hello world copy. So this is going to contain the same, or we want this just to contain the exact same value as contained inside here. So we can actually assign it the value contained inside this variable. So we don't even have to put a new value on this right-hand side. We can actually use variables on both sides. So on this side, we're going to assign the value since we have this equal sign here. And on the right-hand side is going to be the value that's going to be contained within. In this case, we're referencing a variable, we're referencing the variable that we've defined above called hello world. And so the value contained inside here is going to be the exact same value contained inside here. So if we run this, we see we're going to print out the exact same thing twice because the value contained inside each of these is the same. Now, again, just a quick note on the naming. In Python, it's generally standard to have everything be lowercase and to have separate words be separated by underscores. And what we can't do in Python is we can't separate variable names by spaces. A variable name has to be a connected series of characters. An underscore is included in this character. So generally in Python, variable names are going to be descriptive of what it contains. In this case, it's just hello world, but we'll see how this descriptiveness is useful later on, and this descriptiveness, or how this descriptiveness applies to different variables later on. And this descriptiveness is useful because when someone else, or when you are rereading your code and you haven't seen it for a while, it will much more clearly show you what is actually going on. And what is the information contained inside here? Because most of the time when we have variables, we're not just going to define it and use it a bit later down, but we're going to define it in one place and then maybe in a different section we're going to use it. And if we're not descriptive about what's contained inside here, we basically have to follow the whole path backwards until we see where it's first defined so that we understand what's contained inside. And then we need to go through the whole steps to understand if it was modified at some point and what's contained inside now. So it's important to be descriptive so that you know what you're dealing with. And again, the way that we do that in Python is by having everything lowercase and words are separated by underscores instead of spaces.